All right, it's Joe. I'm going to show you how to install the tank booster thermal mixing valve. I installed this in my place because the hot water tank was smelling like rotten eggs a little bit, and I'm on city water, so it's just because the water sits in that tank a little bit, and really smells like rotten eggs when it comes out of the tap. So the tank booster from Cash Acme mixing valve is going to help keep the hot water temperature at 140 degrees. And then it's going to allow us to mix it out so the tap temperature is only 100, 120, 125 degrees, however you set it. So I'll show you the flow of the water here before we get started. So coming in off the street, this is our hot water feed from the house, the main feed, and this is coming into the hot water tank. Here we have our virtual hot water tank right here. And so that's gonna top of the tank, and this is gonna be our hot water here and our cold water here. So the cold water obviously comes in there, and then it come out at the tap right now, and it just goes right up to the house. So with this installed, we're also going to get some of that cold water going here, coming in here to the mixing valve. And so temperature for the mixing valve is adjusted right here. So you adjust that to, if you want the temperature a little higher, out of the box, they have it set at 120 degrees. And so it's going to be about right there-ish. And then that's the temperature that's going to come out of here. My temperature out of the tap right now is at 137 degrees or so. In the video, I do a baseline with and show you what that is. I have the tank set for about 140 degrees because that's the temperature where that bacteria doesn't set. When we're done installing this Cash Acme's tank booster, it's going to have us coming out of here at 120 degrees. I bumped mine up to 125. If the water on the shower felt a little cool, so mine's currently set to about 125. Let's go ahead and get started, and we'll take a look at this.
I'm going to install a tank booster today, and this is a thermostatic mixing valve. It's supposed to help keep the temperature coming out of the faucet from burning people, especially little kids, right? So I have a vacation house, and we use it once a month, but if I don't have the temperature on the hot water heater turned up, then when we come in, it's got a little eggy smell, kind of that egg smell. So you get rid of that, you turn the temperature on the hot water tank up to around 130 degrees or so, and that keeps it from stinking, but then there's a risk of somebody getting burnt. So putting in this mixing valve here is going to help with that. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that, and we're going to walk through that together. But before we start with that, I'm going to do a baseline. I'm going to test what the temperature is coming out of the spigot and see where that's at. And then we're going to put in the valve, and we're going to see where we're at when we're done. So let's get started. So I ran the tap for a few minutes to get the temperature. I already put this in there once, but it was around 70 degrees. And so now when we pop that in there, this temperature is climbing really quick. That's way too hot, 134 degrees. So we'll put that mixing valve in, and we'll see what this temperature looks like when it's coming out of the spigot. Okay, before we get started, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at what we have here. I'm gonna show you what the hot water heater looks like before we go and put in the mixing valve to keep it from getting too hot. So I wish I knew how to turn this camera around. So here we have the hot water, and then we have the cold water, and then the mixing valve parts are going to go in between there. So this one is going to go onto the hot water side, and I got and it'll feed up there, and the cold water is going to come in right here, and that'll help mix it to make sure that it's at the right temperature. And then on this side, we just have a simple T coming off the cold water side, and then the cold water to feed the mixing valve will come in here. So should be pretty straightforward. One of the things we have to do is we have to turn the water off, and we have to drain the tank a little bit and get that water out of there so we don't have it going everywhere. So when we do that, my tank's gas, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn my tank off to the pilot light area so it doesn't burn up the burner. And then after I open up the valves in the house, I'm gonna leave those valves open to the whole process, because when I feed the tank back up, I don't want air building up in the lines. I want that air to be able to flow through the water lines and make everything go straight. So I'm also going to drain some of the water out of the tank from my relief valve right here and drain it out to the sidewalk. And that's going to help ensure that I have water down below the top of the tank so I can work there. So I'll start turning the water off, and I'll meet you back here at the hot water tank to start disassembling and putting this stuff together. Okay, so we're going to start installing this. So these have directional arrows to show you which side goes where. So that is an indication that of the water flow. So we want that going down into the tank, right? And that's because the water's coming into the tank there. And then our hose is gonna hook up here. We're gonna install this first so we can get the hose connected. And then we're gonna line it up with this one. And this one also has directional valves on it. So we can see here that the cold water is supposed to come in on that side. The hot water is going up. And then we have our adjustment here. So, great. So up here on the hot water side, you can see it's got some blue Teflon tape. That's all we really need. You can hear the water filling up the tank. So if you mess the threads up or it's not all the way on there, you want to go and put some new tape on there. Just one turn is all that's really necessary on that. Otherwise, you're going to end up with too much tape. You're going to have problems with it leaking. So you don't want to do that. But this is going to be kind of hard to do, so we're hoping that right there, with it in the back, is going to be tight enough. We can try going one more full turn. I don't think we'll make one more full turn. I guess we will. So I have to get the wrench on it, unfortunately. So I should have stopped at the other turn. So put that on there. Feed that in there. I grab my wrench. So we're just going to straighten out the valve so it goes straight back here. And I'm going to need both hands for this next step, so I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I got that installed there, and finger tight. Just did light tight there to get that facing back, so I can get the mixing valve coming back this way, the hose. So the mixing valve is going to go right here, but as you can see, it doesn't match up. So, but they gave me a handy dandy adapter. So while I was offline, I put some tape on there to get it ready. Just put that on there real quick like. This will make it easier to align this without over tightening it also, this valve, because this can swivel. So we'll just go ahead and do this. Prop you up in the corner. So they gave me a gasket for this, and I think we're going to want to install that to keep, because I have hard water out here, and it'll help keep any Okay, so I put those gaskets in on both sides of this hose here. It had a washer gasket, so that's why I didn't put the white tape on there. And then, as I showed you earlier, this one I had a male-to-male connection, so that didn't work, but they gave me this coupler that I installed, which made it really easy to install this. And then this is my temperature gauge on the tank. They also gave me a strip gauge that I can install on the side here. That'll give me the temperature, but I like this better. And then this pipe, if you go back and look earlier in the video, this was a little straighter. So it's important that you bend this a little bit so there's not tension on this. You don't want tension on this as you're putting it together. So when you're putting this on hand tight, this should be loose in there, right? It shouldn't be real tight. And then these I tightened up just enough to be snug. They don't need to be torqued down real bad or anything like that. So, okay, well that's installed. I'm gonna go turn on the water and we'll come back and check for leaks. Great. So as I mentioned earlier, right, you want to make sure you leave all the valves open in the house. So I opened up one in the bathroom, one in the sink, and I'm going to open up one in the shower on the far end of the house. And that's going to prevent all this air that we put in this lines from causing problems as that water's turned back on. So make sure you do that. Make sure you open those valves to get the water out of there, and leave them open until you're turning this water back on, and then we'll turn them off once all the air is purged from it. Great. We'll come back here and check for leaks in a minute. Okay, so I've gone and purged the air out of the lines, and we're back at the hot water tank, in the ladder. And I just started the hot water tank. I turned it off while we were doing this, and I can show you guys how to do that in another video. This is a little different than the tanks I'm used to. It's got electronic ignition, which is super nice. It just starts a little different than I'm used to. So up here, we have the valve. I have a little bit of a leak I'm gonna have to fix. So I'll go ahead and get my wrench out and address that. But you can see here, just even with the hot water tank, that the output, right? So this is the output, and the mixing valve here is that it was already mixing and bringing the water out of the tank at 120 degrees. And that's really what we're looking for. Once the hot water tank recovers, we'll go and we'll do another test with the thermometer and test what it is at the sink. But we know at the sink before it was over 130 degrees. So this is exactly what I was hoping for. I'm gonna put a couple turns on that drip, and we'll come back and we'll check this in an hour or two after this tank recovers. So great, thanks for watching.